From Atlanta, Georgia, welcome to Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, a podcast for women on leadership and life skills with Rhea Story. Rhea shares powerful life and leadership principles, helping you maximize your potential and become the woman God created you to be.
Hello, everyone. Welcome to Fearfully and Wonderfully Me, a podcast designed to help you discover and develop the leader you are destined to be. Welcome. Today's episode, I'm a little fired up about it. I had the idea for this podcast a couple of weeks ago. If you've been listening regularly, you know that Mac and I have had just a busy fall. We've been on the road a lot. I think I counted and we were gone something like 19 days of October's 31 days. We were on the road traveling. And this topic really challenged me in that season. You know, Mac and I love what we do. We're privileged to go around the country and speaking and teaching on leadership and personal growth. But there is no doubt that there are long days. We spent a lot of time in the car. I think we drove something like 2,500 miles last week. And we went up to Chicago to speak for a group. And then we went almost across half of the country to Washington, D.C. area, and then back home. And so just a great big loop. And it was a great trip, great opportunity. But there are some long days, a lot of time in the car. And I realized that especially when I tend to get tired, I don't know exactly how to even say it, but I don't always show up as the best version of me in that circumstance when I'm tired or it's been a particularly stressful day or a long day. And I know that we all have days where we're just, for whatever reason, things go wrong. Maybe you got some bad news, or maybe it wasn't a day that was your best day for whatever reason. And there's plenty of reasons why a day could not be a best day or a favorite day or a day that we just wish would be over, right? But what I realized was that there were times when I wasn't showing up as the best version of me. Maybe I got a little irritable, or maybe I was hungry and tired and changing time zones, didn't get enough sleep or whatever. But then I would almost fall into that mindset of using it as an excuse, right? And when I do that, the minute I start using that as an excuse, I'm not showing up as the best version of me. And I caught myself a couple of times over the past month just starting to shift into that mindset of, well, I'm tired because, and so it's okay if I'm irritable, right? And then I had to stop and say, you know what? No, it's not. No, it's not okay. Yes, we absolutely all have bad days or trying times, days when things don't go right? But we always have the responsibility for being totally committed to how we show up. And I don't think we talk about this topic enough. Mac and I often say from the stage, we share a little bit of leadership truth. Right. And it's Mac says leadership truth is kind of those things that, like a surgeon's scalpel, they might sting a little bit, they might hurt a little bit, but they're really intended to help. And that's really where my heart is in sharing this topic with you today in this episode, is that I know there are days that don't go right. I know there are going to be times where everything goes wrong, but here's the leadership truth. You always have the responsibility to being totally committed to how you show up in that situation, because every time you show up as the best version of you, and that means choosing a positive, proactive response when things are going badly, you increase your influence with positive, valued people. So, for me, I had to just call myself on it and say, whoa. Yes, maybe I didn't get as much sleep, or maybe I've been on the road, but I'm completely committed to how I show up. And I've heard the analogy not too long ago, or the saying, and I forget who says it, but and it really comes to mind when I talk about this topic of being totally committed to how I show up and totally not invested in the outcome. And I can think of a lot of different ways that this plays out. For example, if you're going into a job interview, right, you have to be, and you should be, 100% committed to how you show up in that job interview. Be your best version of you in that job interview. Now, that doesn't mean you'll get the job, right? And that's just life. That's just reality. But if we are totally committed to showing up authentically as ourselves and the best version of ourselves in that situation, then we've done all we can. We're committed to how we show up, but not dependent on the outcome. And I think that's so empowering, that's so freeing, and that's why I get so fired up about talking about this, because that comes down to our character, right? Our values, who we are as a person is going to determine how we show up. But the problem is that we got to figure out how we want to show up, or what the best version of us looks like, before we get to the trying situation or the challenging situation. So I want to just throw this out there for you today. I want you to spend a few minutes. It doesn't have to be long, but spend a few minutes today. As soon as you get done with this podcast recording, and I quit talking so you have some silence to think, spend a few minutes and think about what the best version of you acts like, or how the best version of you responds. So I like to say, think of a possible situation where something goes wrong. And maybe that's, you pick up your kids and take them to soccer practice and they forgot to bring their shoes. Or someone gets home from school and says, hey, tomorrow, last minute, I need brownies for the school project. Or maybe it's in a leadership role that a deadline got missed, or an important client got dropped. So think of that scenario, one that's plausible for you, one that fits you, that's reasonable, and then think about, if I'm being the best version of myself, how would I show up in that scenario? Now, you might also want to think of a time where you didn't show up recently as the best version of you, and don't beat yourself up for that, but think about how you can improve it, right? How you can do better next time, and visualize it, because that helps us really think through the outcome of, on my best days, this is how I show up. This is how I want to show up. Doesn't mean I'm going to get it right every time. And I'm the first one to say I don't get it right every time. But I needed to challenge myself recently to start intentionally thinking about how I'm showing up. It's easy for me to say, I choose joy in my life. That's easy. And joy is a big value for me. But am I really showing up with that value in my life? Like, day to day, can you have a conversation with me and pretty quickly figure out that I'm practicing joy, I'm experiencing joy? Joy isn't a product of our environment or our circumstances. It's a choice that we make. Positive attitude shouldn't be something that we just have when things are going right. And I know this is a little bit of a heavy topic. It's kind of like a little bit of responsibility, right? When I challenge you to say, are you showing up day to day as a mom, as a wife, as a leader, as a supervisor? Are you showing up as the best version of you? What would that look like? Because if you can't define it, it's going to be really tough to live it and do it and be it. And, so I know it's a little bit of a heavy responsibility, but it's also exciting because, right, it's empowering to know that we can intentionally create the best version of ourselves. But we got to start with knowing what that looks like. And so, there again, I'm going to wrap up this podcast in just a minute and then give you a couple of minutes. I want you to really think through what the best version of me looks like in a couple of specific situations, something that's relevant to you. I'm going to leave you with a quote. Nicole Scherzinger noted, "Confidence comes with maturity and being more accepting of yourself." And when I hear that, I also like to think about Michael Josephson's quote, "You don't have to be sick to get better." When I talk on this, when I teach on this topic, I want you to know it's not that you're sick, right? There's nothing wrong with you. You're not broken, But being fearfully and wonderfully me means I'm being the best version of myself, and I've got to be totally committed to how I show up and how I'm living that best version of me. Until next time.
Start increasing your influence and maximizing your potential with Ria's audiobooks. Available at audible.com, amazon.com, and iBooks. Please visit riastory.com to learn about Ria's books, resources, speaking, and training programs. Thanks for listening.